The fog over Highway 12 moved like a slow, breathing creature, thick enough to swallow sound, thin enough to trick you into thinking you were alone. But 9-year-old Lily Harper wasn't afraid. She walked the gravel shoulder with a sketchbook pressed to her chest, boots crunching lightly, breath misting the air. At her side trotted Ranger, her aging German shepherd, his black and tan fur damp with morning dew. Up ahead, a lone patrol SUV idled on the shoulder, its lights pulsing a soft blue-red glow through the fog. Deputy Lydia Cole, new to Pine Ridge, stood by a stopped pickup, speaking calmly with the driver. Her hand rested casually on the window frame. Nothing about her posture said danger. Ranger's ears twitched, then stiffened. A low growl crawled out of his throat. Lily barely had time to breathe before a red semi-truck burst from the curve, engine howling like something feral. It didn't drift into the shoulder, it aligned with it, deliberate, steady, intentional. "Ma'am, look out!" Lily screamed. The roar of the diesel drowned her voice. Impact. Metal slammed into bone. Deputy Cole was thrown across the ditch like a broken doll. The truck never slowed. In the blur of taillights, Lily saw a wolf decal snarling across the back door, and a dirty plate starting with V7K, before the semi slipped into the trees like a predator retreating into its den. No witnesses, no signal, no time. Ranger tugged hard on the leash, barking once, sharp, commanding. It wasn't panic, it was instinct. Run, get help, now. Was this a tragic accident? Or had a child and her dog just watched someone try to silence a cop forever? Pine Ridge, Oregon, was the kind of timber town people drove through without noticing. A scattering of logging trucks, a diner with a neon sign that flickered every other night, and a community that measured the year not by seasons, but by when the mill whistles blew. That morning, the world felt half asleep. Fog settled low between the pines, heavy and cold, turning the edges of the forest into blurred watercolor. The air smelled of wet bark, diesel, and the faint sweetness of sap, the scent of a town built from trees and long hours. Lily Harper, all 9 years and 4 feet of quiet determination, walked the old frontage road that paralleled Highway 12. She had just finished her Saturday art class at the Pine Ridge Community Center. Her backpack stuffed so full of charcoal sketches that the zipper barely closed. Ranger, her German shepherd, kept pace beside her, not too fast, not too slow, like he had calibrated every step to match hers. His muzzle was peppered with gray, his gait just a hint stiff from old injuries, but his eyes stayed bright and alert. A soldier's eyes, a survivor's eyes. Ranger hadn't started his life as a family dog. He had once been a FEMA search and rescue K9, deployed to wildfires, collapsed warehouses, and hurricane debris fields. He'd pulled people out of places no human could reach, guided by nothing but instinct, training, and a loyalty so fierce it bordered on divine. But a warehouse collapse in Sacramento changed everything. His partner, his handler, didn't make it out. Ranger did. Pulled from the dust by a young wildland firefighter named Jack Harper, Lily's father. Jack brought him home, telling Lily, "He's older, he's hurting, he'll need a gentle kid." And Lily had been exactly that. She drew him, read next to him, slept with her hand resting lightly on his fur so he'd know he wasn't alone. Still, even retired, even softened by home, Ranger never lost the habits of a working dog. His nose tracked every shift in the wind. His ears flicked at distant engines. His chest rumbled when something unseen crossed the tree line. Lily loved to pretend she could sense what he sensed. She couldn't, not really, but she trusted him more than she trusted most adults. As they walked, the fog thinned enough for Lily to see blue-red lights ahead, a sheriff's SUV parked at an angle on the shoulder. She recognized the uniformed woman beside the stopped truck, Deputy Lydia Cole, the transfer from Chicago. People in town couldn't stop whispering about her. She was polite, quiet, kept to herself. The kind of cop who watched before she spoke. But the whispers carried something heavier too. That she had worked with canine units in Chicago. That her service dog had died in a fire connected to a theft of hospital opioids. That she'd left the city not out of ambition, but grief. Lily didn't understand all of it. She only knew that Ranger always paid attention to Deputy Cole, studying her with the same cautious recognition he used on firefighters and paramedics. People shaped by the same storms. This morning, she seemed completely at ease. But Ranger wasn't. His ears snapped forward. His body stiffened, tense as a bowstring. And without knowing why, Lily felt something cold slide through her chest. Something was coming, something big. To most people in Pine Ridge, Deputy Lydia Cole was just the new cop. The woman who drank her coffee black at the Cedar Street diner. The one who always parked her cruiser perfectly straight. The one whose eyes flicked toward every doorway before she walked through it. But Lily, and especially Ranger, noticed details the adults missed. Lydia held herself like someone who had learned to stand tall, even when the world tried to fold her. Her posture was straight, precise, almost military. Her voice low, even and kind in a way that didn't feel performative. And although she smiled with her mouth, she never fully smiled with her eyes. Ranger sensed it instantly. He didn't wag his tail when she was near. He watched her instead, measured, thoughtful, as if he were recognizing an old scar on a new face. Maybe he was, because Lydia Cole carried a shadow behind her badge, one she never spoke of, but one Ranger understood better than any human alive. A year earlier, in Chicago, Lydia had been part of a K-9 unit investigating a warehouse suspected of hiding diverted opioid shipments. It was supposed to be a simple raid. Her partner, K-9 Bruno, a massive sable shepherd, had been trained to find hidden narcotics and people in tight spaces. But criminals desperate to protect their pipeline do desperate things. Someone set the upper floor ablaze. The fire dropped fast, smoke chewing through wood, oxygen turning to heat. Lydia tried to call Bruno back. He refused. He had found someone inside. When part of the mezzanine collapsed, Lydia jumped after him without thinking. The blast of heat stole her breath, debris tore her gear, and darkness swallowed half the room. She survived because firefighters pulled her out by the straps of her vest. Bruno didn't. After the fire, the Chicago task force fractured under internal suspicion. Files went missing. Body cam footage disappeared. Upper command blamed procedural errors. And someone told her bluntly, "Drop it, Cole, you're too close." Close to what? To who? Even now, she didn't have the answers. All she had was the guilt, and Bruno's scorched metal K-9 badge she kept buried in her wallet. 3 months later, she filed a transfer to a rural region, as far from Chicago as possible. Pine Ridge welcomed her politely, quietly, and without questions, exactly what she thought she wanted. This morning, as she stood beside the pickup on Highway 12, she forced herself to breathe normally. The fog, the scent of pine, the hum of the engine, none of it hinted at danger. The driver, a nervous logger with trembling hands, apologized repeatedly about a broken taillight. She reassured him with patience she didn't truly feel. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed movement. A small girl in a pink jacket, holding a sketchbook, watching from the shoulder. A German shepherd beside her, Ranger. Lydia's chest tightened, not with fear, but recognition. Old working dogs carry a certain energy, a stillness, a readiness. Ranger had it. Even now, old and gray, he had it. His eyes met hers across the fog, sharp, amber, knowing. And then his entire body snapped to attention, head turning toward the curve. Lydia felt it a half-second later, an instinctive alarm that crawled up the spine, the sense that something was wrong. Not the kind of wrong that came from a simple traffic stop. The kind of wrong that once cost her a partner. She didn't have time to reach for her radio. Behind her, Lily whispered, "Ranger, what's happening?" And Ranger, old as he was, answered the only way he knew how. He growled, low and dark, the kind of growl a dog makes not out of fear, but out of warning. Ranger's growl didn't sound like the rumble he used on raccoons, or the warning he gave when a stranger walked too close at night. This one was deeper, older, something carved into his bones from years of running into danger instead of away from it. Lily felt it vibrate through the leash and into her palm. "Ranger," she whispered. He didn't look at her. His body locked toward the bend in Highway 12, ears pricked sharp, muscles rigid beneath aging fur. Even Lily could see it. He wasn't just alert, he was bracing. A heartbeat later, the sound arrived. A distant roar, low at first, then rising like a monster waking up in the fog. Deputy Lydia Cole turned slightly, her brows pulling together. The logger in the pickup leaned his head out of the window, confused. But Ranger already knew. The fog tore open as a red semi-truck exploded into view, barreling down the curve far faster than the posted limit. The cab shuddered from speed, headlights slicing clean white channels through the gray. It wasn't drifting toward the shoulder. Lily saw the subtle, horrifying correction. A tiny adjustment of the wheel that aligned the truck directly with Deputy Cole. "Ma'am!" Lily screamed, voice cracking. But the diesel's roar swallowed the sound whole. Lydia barely turned before the impact hit. Metal struck bone with a sickening crunch Lily would remember for the rest of her life. The truck smashed Lydia off her feet, sending her flying across the gravel ditch. Her flashlight arced through the air, bouncing once before disappearing into the weeds. The logger screamed, scrambling out of his truck, but the semi never slowed. No red brake lights, no skid, nothing. As it passed, Ranger lunged toward the asphalt, dragging Lily forward with a strength he hadn't used in years. His nose flared, sucking in the smell of burning rubber, hot diesel, and something else, something sharp, chemical. Lily's eyes caught movement on the back door of the trailer, a snarling wolf decal, its jaws open mid-howl. Beneath it, a smeared license plate she could only read in fragments. V7K. Maybe a 9. Maybe an R. Then the red beast vanished into the trees like it was dissolving into fog. Silence slammed down. Only the ticking of the impacted pickup engine and the faint crackle of Lydia's crushed radio filled the air. Lily felt the world spin. Her hands slipped. Her knees trembled. "Dad! Dad! I need my dad!" she choked out, but the words felt thin, fragile. Ranger whipped back toward her, barking, sharp, urgent, commanding. Not panic. A command. Move. Now. He tugged the leash hard, guiding, pulling, almost dragging her toward town. But halfway down the ditch, he suddenly diverted, nose to the ground. He pressed a paw against a fresh tread mark in the mud, still wet, still warm. Then looked back at Lily, eyes blazing with a clarity she had never seen before. "This way," his body said. "This is important." Then he barked again, louder, faster, thinner with urgency. Lily wiped her face. She didn't fully understand what had happened, but she understood Ranger, and Ranger was telling her one thing. Run. Get help, before the man in that truck comes back to finish what he started. The first thing Deputy Lydia Cole felt was silence, a heavy, unnatural kind that wrapped around her like wet wool. Then came the antiseptic smell, sharp and metallic, followed by a slow, irregular beep. A heartbeat monitor. Her heartbeat. She tried lifting her head. The world lurched sideways. A bandage tugged against her forehead, and a stabbing pain shot through her ribs like someone tightening a steel band around her chest. She opened her eyes to a dim hospital room, washed in cold winter light. For a moment, She couldn't remember why she was here. Then, the roar, the headlights, the red semi correcting its angle, the impact. Memory returned in splintered flashes. She inhaled sharply. The door opened with a soft click. Lieutenant Carl Dawson stepped in. Broad-shouldered, silver hair at the temples, the permanently tired look of a man who'd been in law enforcement too long. He carried a clipboard. He wasn't really reading. "Well, Cole," he said, forcing a sympathetic half-smile. "You're lucky to be alive. Hit and run on Highway 12. Truck driver panicked and fled the scene. We'll issue a bolo, but it happens." His tone was practiced. Smooth. Too smooth. Lydia tried to speak. "The truck corrected. It aimed for me." Dawson lifted a hand gently, as if soothing a skittish animal. "Memory's unreliable after head trauma. You took a hard hit. Best to let the professionals reconstruct the scene. For now, focus on resting." Resting. Right. While a man who tried to kill her sped freely through Oregon. She swallowed. "The case I was working, Northline's shipment logs." Dawson's jaw tightened by a fraction. "Almost invisible. Almost." "Cole," he said softly, "now isn't the time to go digging into warehouse paperwork. You've been here less than a year. This town is quiet. People don't need big city suspicion brought in. Let Highway Patrol handle the accident report." He spoke too quickly at the end, too firmly. Then he turned away, already leaving before she could press further. When the door clicked shut, the silence returned. Thicker this time, colder. It lasted only a moment before soft footsteps approached, hesitant but hopeful. The door cracked open. Jack Harper entered first, broad, rough-handed, still carrying the quiet scars of a former wildland firefighter. His face was pale, his eyes wide with worry. Behind him, peeked Lily, clinging to a sketchbook. And then, Ranger. The old shepherd slipped into the room with a weighty presence, nails clicking softly on the linoleum. The nurse had made an exception, perhaps seeing the terror in Lily's face. Jack exhaled shakily. "Deputy, we were there. Lily saw the whole thing. Ranger." He dragged her home. Lydia opened her mouth, but Lily stepped closer, voice trembling. "He didn't break, ma'am. The truck. It was big and red and had a wolf sticker. I think the plate started with V7K. Daddy said to tell you everything." Lydia's gaze drifted to Ranger. He sat beside her bed, amber eyes locked on hers. Not fearful, not confused, recognizing. The same way Bruno had looked at her the night of the warehouse fire, right before the floor collapsed. A knowing, a warning. Something cold rippled through her stomach. "Ranger," she whispered, before she realized she'd said it aloud. The dog's ears twitched. A soft, almost mourning rumble rolled in his chest. Jack frowned. "Deputy, our daughter isn't exaggerating. That truck aimed straight for you." Lydia gripped the blanket. Dawson's words echoed. Memories unreliable. But Lily's? Ranger's? No. Something was wrong. Something was being buried. And for the first time since Chicago, Lydia felt that old, terrible certainty. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted her gone. She didn't know who. But Ranger seemed to know where to start. Deputy Lydia Cole signed her discharge papers sooner than any doctor wanted. Her ribs screamed with each breath. Her head throbbed, and her left arm trembled every time she lifted it, more than a few inches. But none of it mattered. She had been hit intentionally. And the only two beings who knew anything, truly knew anything, were a 9-year-old girl and an old dog with a nose trained to find the dead and the living. Jack parked his truck near the crash site. Frost still coated the ditch where Lydia had landed. The morning fog had thinned, revealing a pale sky streaked with weak sunlight. The world looked clean again. It was a lie. Lily stayed inside the truck, hands tight around Ranger's spare leash. She watched anxiously as Ranger leapt out, already lowering his nose to the ground. Lydia followed slowly, ignoring the sting in her ribs. Ranger didn't hesitate. He went straight to the shoulder where the semi had driven off, nose pressed to the cold asphalt, tail stiff, ears locked forward. Then he took a sharp right turn, stepping off the road and into the tree line. Jack frowned. That's not the direction the semi went. Highway curves left. Lydia shook her head. No, he's not following tire tracks. She watched Ranger weave between saplings. He's following odor. The shepherd led them along a narrow deer trail, frost crunching under their boots. Lydia's breath fogged in front of her. Rangers moved in quick, determined bursts. After a few minutes, the trail sloped downward into a dense grove of Douglas firs. That's where they found it. A wide patch of churned earth, fresh, damp soil, deep parallel grooves carved by heavy tires. Jack crouched beside one and pressed his palm into the indentation. Still warm, he muttered. Whatever made these passed through less than an hour ago. Lydia scanned the tree line. Why leave the highway here? Jack raised his eyebrows. To avoid dash cams. Or witnesses. Ranger suddenly veered left, tail raised. He darted toward a half-hidden service road, little more than a dirt strip cutting through the woods. Lydia limped after him until the trees thinned and the world opened into an industrial clearing. A chain-link fence, loading docks, forklifts, cold steel buildings. A sign read, North Line Medical Logistics, Pacific Distribution Center. Lydia felt her pulse spike. North Line. The same distributor tied to missing shipments in Chicago. The same name she'd mentioned to Dawson yesterday. The one he insisted she stop digging into. Jack whistled low. Medical shipments, out here? Ranger padded right up to the fence. His nose hovered an inch above the ground, tracing a faint smear of red on the concrete. Paint. The exact same shade Lily had described on the semi. Lydia knelt despite the agony in her ribs. She scraped the dried paint fleck with her fingernail and held it up. Red. Oxidized. Trucker-grade enamel. Her stomach clenched. Before she could speak, the back door of the warehouse opened. A tall man with a broad belly and too eager smile stepped out, adjusting his tie despite the cold. His badge read, Rick Barnes, Facility Manager. Well now, he called, Pine Ridge's newest deputy. You're a long way from town. Don't tell me you're investigating potholes out here. Lydia pocketed the paint fleck. Hit and run on Highway 12. Red semi, wolf decal, passing through this area within the last hour. Barnes's smile flickered, but only for a second. We don't have any red trucks on rotation. Medical shipments, all above board. Lots of paperwork. I'm sure your lieutenant would tell you the same. There it was. That same smoothness. The same studied calm she'd seen in men with far too much to hide. Ranger growled quietly behind the fence. Barnes glanced down at the dog, eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. That mutt always growl at strangers? Jack stiffened. He only growls when something's wrong. Barnes's smile thinned. Well then, you folks have a good day. He retreated inside, the door slamming with too much force. Lydia didn't move. Her breath steamed in the cold. Behind them, Ranger pressed his paw to the faint smear of red paint, almost like he was marking it, claiming it, making sure Lydia didn't look away. She didn't, because Ranger was right. This wasn't the end of the trail. It was just the beginning. Deputy Lydia Cole didn't go straight home after leaving Northline. She couldn't. Her ribs hurt, her head ached, but her mind burned hotter than the injuries. A red semi, wolf decal, paint on the dock, a warehouse whose name she thought she'd left behind in Chicago. Too many coincidences, too much déjà vu. And Dawson's insistence that she stop digging echoed like a warning wrapped in a threat. Jack drove while Ranger lay in the back seat, head resting between the front seats, eyes fixed on Lydia with a quiet, unwavering alertness, as if waiting for her next move. Her phone buzzed. "Deputy Miguel Reyes," she answered. "Tell me you found something." Reyes' voice came through in a low whisper, like he ducked into a supply closet to avoid being overheard. "You were right. About everything." Lydia's pulse thudded. "Go on." "I pulled DMV files from every commercial operator within 50 miles. Found one registered to Northline's decommissioned fleet. A red Kenworth semi, model 2009, supposedly scrapped last year." "Supposedly," Lydia repeated. "Yeah, except it was logged entering the Northline yard at 05:42 this morning on a maintenance camera." Ranger shifted at the tone in her voice, ears pricking. Lydia gripped the phone harder. "Who's the driver?" A pause. Paper rustling. "Dennis Corman. Goes by Denny. 2 priors. Drug distribution and assault. Paroled 18 months ago. Hired by Northline 3 weeks later." Jack muttered a curse under his breath. "Let me guess," Lydia said quietly. "No background check on file." "None that HR will send. Barnes claims it's misplaced." Reyes inhaled sharply. "And Lydia, there's more." Ranger sat up fully now, as if he understood the gravity tightening around them. "What is it?" she asked. Reyes' voice dropped. "I compared the Northline shipping logs to the Oregon Health Authority's opioid distribution data. Northline has been receiving twice the amount of fentanyl patches and hydromorphone vials that local clinics report using." Lydia's chest constricted. "That's impossible unless—" "They're diverting it," Reyes finished. "Someone's taking medical shipments off book. The same pattern you told me about from Chicago." Her hand trembled around the phone. "Chicago. Bruno. The fire. The files that vanished. The lieutenant who said she was too close." "What about Dawson?" she asked quietly. "Has he seen the shipping discrepancies?" Reyes hesitated. "Too long." "He told me to drop it," the deputy finally whispered. "Said it was state jurisdiction and not our problem." "And Lydia—" "He ordered me to shut down the camera search." Lydia closed her eyes. Her stomach twisted. Ranger let out a low, distressed whine, like he sensed her rising dread. Jack looked at her. "Deputy, if Dawson's involved—" "I don't know that," she interrupted sharply. But the chill in her voice said she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. She exhaled slowly and forced her mind to focus. "Where's Denny now?" "His semi was logged, leaving Northline 18 minutes ago. Heading north. Could be a delivery, could be a run. But Lydia—" "What?" "The warehouse camera that caught him leaving. It's gone dark. Someone cut the feed 5 minutes after I accessed it." Ranger growled then, a quiet, ancestral sound that vibrated through the truck. Lydia stared into his amber eyes. This wasn't an accident. Wasn't random. Wasn't misfortune. Someone was running an opioid pipeline through Pine Ridge. Someone had killed to protect it. And when that didn't work, they tried to kill her. But they made one mistake. They didn't count on a child seeing. They didn't count on a dog remembering. Lydia whispered, "Thank you, Reyes. Keep your head down and trust no one." As Jack turned the truck toward town, Ranger pressed his muzzle to Lydia's arm, gentle, grounding. He wasn't asking a question. He was saying, "Keep going. You're on the right trail." That night, Pine Ridge felt different. Still the same quiet logging town. Same porch lights glowing gold in the cold. Same drifting scent of pine sap. But under it ran something colder. A current. A tension. A sense that someone was watching. Because someone was. Jack parked the truck outside their apartment building. A worn, 2-story complex with flaking paint and a flickering stairwell light. Lily ran inside ahead of them, clutching Ranger's leash. Ranger followed closely, body low, ears swiveling like radar dishes. Lydia lingered by the truck, scanning the shadows. She didn't want to admit it, but every instinct she'd buried since Chicago was flooding back. The feeling of being observed. The suspicion in the air. The sense that danger was close. Too close. Jack unlocked the front door. That was when Ranger froze. His entire body stiffened. His fur rose along his spine. His lips peeled back. Not in a bark, but in a deep, low warning growl, the kind he used only when something deadly was near. "Ranger?" Lily whispered, moving behind her father. The dog didn't blink, his gaze fixed across the parking lot. A dark gray minivan sat in the far corner, engine off, windows tinted black. No plates, no dealer sticker, nothing to identify it. It hadn't been there when they left that afternoon. A shape sat in the driver's seat, still, facing them. Jack's jaw tightened. "Get inside," he ordered softly. They did. But Ranger stayed at the threshold, staring at that van like it was something ancient and evil. When Jack stepped back outside to close the door, the minivan suddenly started its engine. Ranger lunged forward so hard his nails scraped the floor. The growl erupted into a vicious bark, sharp, rapid, furious. The van peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching as it vanished around the corner. Lily was shaking. "Daddy, he was looking at us, I know he was." Jack placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "I know, sweetheart." Behind them, Lydia closed her eyes and exhaled shakily. She had seen this pattern before. Threat first, surveillance second, then escalation. The opioid ring in Chicago had used the same steps, and they had taken someone from her. She wouldn't let the same thing happen to Lily, or Ranger, or Jack. Across town, in a dimly lit 911 dispatch center, Karen Mills sat at her console, hands trembling as she typed. A single mother of a 7-year-old boy, drowning under medical debt. She had taken the dispatcher job for the health insurance. She never imagined she'd be weaponized by criminals. But tonight, the burner phone on the desk buzzed. Unknown number. The same one as before. She answered with a whisper. "Please don't call again." The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. "Karen, you routed Deputy Cole's call logs today. Good. Now you'll make sure any calls regarding Northline or Highway 12 get delayed. Miss a few seconds. Lose a few files." Karen swallowed hard. "You said you'd leave my son alone." "That depends," the voice said. "Is your son home right now?" Her breath stuttered. Yes." "Then keep cooperating. And Karen, if that little Harper girl mentions the truck's plate again, we'll send someone to fix it." Her blood ran cold. The call ended with a click. She pressed both hands to her face and sobbed silently. She didn't want to do this. She didn't want to be part of something dark, but fear is a powerful leash. Later that night, Lydia sat in Jack's small living room. Lily slept curled on the couch, Ranger lying beside her, one paw draped protectively over her blanket, his gaze never leaving the window. "Deputy," Jack said quietly, pulling her aside. "If someone's following my daughter—" "They are," Lydia whispered. She didn't sugarcoat it. "And they're desperate. The kind of desperate that kills." Jack's breath hitched. Anger flickered in his eyes. Ranger suddenly lifted his head, ears pointed, body rigid. He stared at the balcony door, nose lifting to the air. A low sound rumbled in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Lydia breathed. Ranger barked once, a sharp, short burst. Not fear, alert. Lydia moved to the window. Outside, the fog had returned. Thicker, heavier, like a curtain hiding someone who was standing just out of sight. For the first time since arriving in Pine Ridge, Lydia whispered a truth she never wanted to admit. This isn't just a hit and run. This is a war. And we just got pulled into it. Ranger nudged her hand, as if answering. Good. Because I'm not running this time, and neither are you. By sunrise, the fog had thickened again, wrapping Pine Ridge in a dim gray shroud. Lydia hadn't slept. Jack hadn't either. Ranger barely closed his eyes, pacing between the windows, nose testing every shift in the air, like a machine wired for danger. The day was only a few hours old when Lydia's phone vibrated. Reyes, you need to come to the station. Now. Her stomach nodded. Jack stayed home with Lily. Ranger refused to let Lily out of his sight, lying pressed against her legs while she ate breakfast, tail unmoving, eyes sharp. Lydia drove to the sheriff's office on instinct and dread. She stepped out of the cruiser, then smelled it. Smoke. Black. Bitter. Acrid. An ambulance and 2 fire engines crowded the back of the building. Officers stood in stunned silence as a column of dark smoke curled into the morning sky. Lydia pushed through the tape. A firefighter shook his head gravely. Electrical fault. Evidence room caught fire at about 4 a.m. Burned hot. We lost everything. Everything. The dash cam backups, the shipping logs Reyes pulled, the seized vials, the semi-plate footage. Every thread she needed. Gone. Reyes rushed to her, face pale. Lydia, this isn't a coincidence. That room never catches fire. Sprinklers failed. Backup alarms failed. Someone disabled the whole system. Before she could respond, the front door slammed. Lieutenant Dawson strode out, jaw tense. Cole, in my office. Now. Inside, he closed the blinds with a snap. You're suspended, he said flatly. Lydia's pulse pounded. On what grounds? You're making reckless accusations about Northline without evidence. You're encouraging deputies to dig into state jurisdiction cases. You're interfering with Highway Patrol's investigation. And his eyes hardened. You've brought trouble into this department. Lydia took a step forward. Someone tried to kill me. Someone burned our evidence. Someone is following a 9-year-old girl and her dog. Enough! Dawson slammed his palm on the desk. The room went silent. He lowered his voice. You're emotional, traumatized. Take 2 weeks off. Let the town breathe. The words echoed, too similar to what the Chicago brass had said after Bruno died. She stared at him, and something inside her broke, not from fear, from realization. He wasn't protecting her. He was protecting whoever had turned Pine Ridge into an opioid corridor. She walked out without another word. Jack answered the phone on the second ring. A muffled, distorted voice seeped through. Mr. Harper, you seem like a smart man, so listen carefully. Jack froze. Who is this? You tell your daughter to stop talking about the red truck. You tell that deputy to stop poking around Northline. And you stop that dog from sniffing where he shouldn't. Jack's grip tightened. If you come near my family, the voice cut him off, calm as ice. Next time, the semi won't swerve around your building. It'll go through it. Click. Jack's breath came uneven. Ranger lifted his head instantly, the way he always did when fear rose in a room. Lily, Jack whispered, stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone. 30 minutes later, Lydia arrived at Jack's apartment building. The front door was ajar. A bowl of dog food spilled across the floor. A chair overturned. The balcony door wide open, curtains fluttering in the cold wind. Jack? Lily? She called out. From the hallway, Jack burst in, pale as ash. They're gone! Lydia, they're gone! Lydia's throat closed. The snow outside the balcony told the story. Small footprints, dragged boot marks, and beside them, 4 deep gouges in the snow where Ranger's claws had dug in as he fought. Her vision blurred. Ranger, she whispered, voice cracking. Jack pointed at tire tracks leading away toward the trees. Deep, fast, fresh, a gray minivan. Lydia's breath shattered in her chest. They hadn't just taken the girl. They had taken the dog. And for Lydia Cole, That wasn't just kidnapping. That was war. The abandoned garages near the Old Ridge Quarry were nothing but a row of rotting concrete shells. Windows blown out, roofs sagging, graffiti carved into rusted doors. Pine needles covered the ground like a dead carpet. The wind whistled through broken vents with a hollow, metallic moan. Inside garage number 14, a single lantern cast a sick, yellow pool of light. Lily Harper sat on the cold floor, wrists tied to a support beam. Her cheeks were streaked with tears she tried not to shed. Her breath puffed in shaky clouds. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for Ranger. He was chained to a steel post just a few feet away, sides heaving, ribcage rising and falling with restrained fury. A heavy-duty logging chain looped his neck, far too thick to snap. But Ranger didn't panic. He didn't bark. He simply stared, burning, calculating. His amber eyes stayed fixed on Lily, not on the men. "Kid should have been quiet," Denny Corman muttered, pacing back and forth, rubbing his shaved head nervously. "We weren't supposed to take a kid." From the shadows, Rick Barnes emerged, holding a red gas can. He didn't look nervous. He looked annoyed. "Accidents happen," Barnes said coldly. "People wander near quarries all the time. Old garages catch fire. A tragedy." Lily's heart pounded so hard, she thought it might burst. "Please, please don't hurt Ranger. Take me home, and I won't say anything, I swear." "I swear." Barnes didn't even look at her. "We're not afraid of you talking," he said. "We're afraid of the deputy talking. And the dog. That dog should have died in Chicago when the building collapsed. He's been a thorn ever since." Ranger's lips curled, but he didn't growl. Not yet. "That deputy won't find us," Barnes continued, uncapping the gas can. "She's suspended, isolated. And by the time she tries to call for backup, Karen will delay the call long enough. Right, Denny?" Denny swallowed. I didn't sign up to kill a kid." "And yet here you are," Barnes snapped. He splashed gasoline across the floor. The smell hit Lily like a punch. Her lungs tightened. She tried to scoot away, but the rope cut deeper into her wrists. Barnes turned toward Ranger. "This one goes first," he muttered. He stepped forward, and Ranger moved, not wildly, not desperately, but with silent, precise control, the way a trained K9 calculates in a collapsing building. He shifted his weight, pressing the side of his collar against the chipped edge of the post. Then again. Metal scraped. The sound was faint, almost lost in the wind. But Lily recognized it. He was weakening the ring, just like Jack once told her. A good working dog never gets comfortable with restraints. If ever trapped, he'll keep testing. Lily's breath caught. "Ranger," she whispered, voice trembling with hope. Barnes didn't hear. He was too busy soaking a line of gasoline toward the door. But Denny heard. He glanced at the shepherd. Eyes widened. "Ranger, don't," Lily whispered. Not as a command, but as a prayer. The shepherd looked at her, pupils blazing with fierce, aching loyalty. Then, with one brutal lunge, snap, the weakened collar ring tore open. The chain hit the concrete with a metallic scream. Ranger didn't attack. Not yet. He stepped between Lily and the men, silent, tall, unblinking. A wall. A shield. A soldier reborn. Barnes turned at the sound of the chain hitting the ground. "What the?" Ranger lowered his head. And for the first time since Chicago, his growl filled the room like thunder. Snow fell sideways across the quarry, whipped into frantic spirals by the cutting wind. Headlights from Jack's truck sliced through the dark as he, Lydia, and Deputy Reyes crept toward the row of crumbling garages. Their breath rose in pale plumes. Their hearts hammered. Ranger's last bark, the deep, guttural one, still echoed in Lydia's memory. "That was his alert bark," she whispered. "The one he used when he found someone alive." Jack swallowed hard. Then he's telling us they don't have much time. They approached the garages with flashlights off, feet crunching softly on the frozen ground. Reyes pointed at faint footprints, big ones, small ones, and paw prints that made Lydia's throat tighten. "He fought," Reyes murmured. "He always fights," Lydia whispered back. Then, a sound, faint but unmistakable. A muffled cry, a child's cry. Lydia's blood went cold. She motioned with 2 fingers, signaling Reyes to circle behind. Jack stayed close, muscles tensed like coiled wire. Snow swirled harder, blanketing the world in white noise. Inside garage No. 14, Barnes lifted a lighter with a steady hand. Gasoline fumes saturated the air, thick and suffocating. Lily coughed violently, eyes watering. Ranger stood in front of her. Fur bristled, teeth bared. Denny hovered near the door, shaking violently. "Barnes, please, let's just walk away," Barnes sneered. "You walk away, you die. I walk away, I get paid. Big difference." The lighter flicked. A tiny flame sparked. And then, boom! The garage door burst inward, kicked open by Jack's full body weight. Snow blasted inside with the wind, swirling through the gasoline haze. Barnes spun. "What?" Ranger didn't wait. He became a missile, fur, muscle, fury, launching forward with a roar that shook the concrete walls. His jaws locked around Barnes's forearm, teeth sinking deep. Barnes screamed, dropping the lighter. Denny grabbed Lily instinctively, shielding her from the gasoline splash. "Kids, stay down!" Lydia charged inside. At the same moment, Reyes stormed the back entrance. The scene erupted into chaos. Shouts, barking, the scrape of boots, the metallic clatter of the gas can hitting the ground. Barnes, screaming, swung wildly with his free hand. A gun flashed into view. Lydia didn't hesitate. She hurled herself forward. Crack. A single shot tore the air. A bolt of pain exploded through Lydia's shoulder, nearly spinning her to the ground. But she didn't fall. She gritted her teeth and pushed forward, slamming Barnes against the wall as Ranger held his arm in a vise of teeth and fury. Reyes tackled Denny before the man could bolt, wrestling him into the dirt, cuffs clicking shut. Ranger didn't release until Lydia gave the order through labored breaths. Ranger! Out!" The dog instantly obeyed, backing up, teeth bared but controlled. Barnes slid down the wall, groaning, blood pouring from his arm. Jack rushed to Lily, scooping her into his arms. She clung to him, shaking uncontrollably. Daddy, Ranger saved me. He saved me." Ranger, chest heaving, nudged her gently with his nose, whining softly, as if checking every inch of her for harm. Lydia, pale and sweating, leaned against the wall. Blood seeped between her fingers where she pressed her hand to her shoulder. Reyes looked at her with horror. "Deputy, you need a medic." "I'm fine," she rasped. "Get Lily out. Get Ranger out. Get everyone out." The wind howled through the shattered doorway. Snow blew across the floor like drifting ghosts. And for the first time tonight, Lydia allowed herself to breathe. They were alive. Because the girl didn't stay silent. Because the dog didn't give up. Because a wounded deputy stood her ground, even when the world tried to knock her down. This wasn't the end. But tonight, they had won. Snow still fell the next morning, but it wasn't the violent, sideways storm of the night before. It drifted gently now, soft flakes melting on warm pavement, settling quietly on pine branches. Pine Ridge woke slowly, unaware that its darkest secret had just been dragged into the light. Lydia Cole woke in a hospital bed again. This time, though, the silence felt different. It wasn't fear. It wasn't emptiness. It was peace. Pain flared in her shoulder, but it was honest pain, earned pain. She breathed through it as sunlight filtered past the blinds, drawing warm stripes across the blanket. A nurse smiled softly. You're lucky that bullet missed the artery, Lydia exhaled. I've heard that before. Her voice was hoarse, but her heart felt steadier than it had in years. Before she could sit up, the door burst open. Lily. She flew into the room, careful but desperate, eyes shining with tears that finally had space to exist. You didn't die, she whispered, clutching Lydia's uninjured side. Neither did you, Lydia murmured, resting her chin lightly on the girl's hair. Behind her stood Jack, exhausted, unshaven, but finally breathing normally. And beside him, tail wagging lightly, sat Ranger, bandaged paw and bruised ribs hidden beneath his fur. He walked straight to Lydia's bedside, lowered his head onto her mattress, and huffed as if scolding her. Lydia smiled weakly. Yeah, I know. I shouldn't have taken that bullet, but you shouldn't have taken on a grown man either, Ranger grumbled, unconvinced. The legal storm hit Pine Ridge by noon. Reyes delivered the news. Barnes was in critical but stable condition. Denny had already flipped, giving a full recorded confession. And during interrogation, both men named Northline Pacific Logistics as the distribution hub for a multi-state opioid diversion pipeline. Within hours, Oregon State Police raided the warehouse. Cases of stolen fentanyl, forged manifests, 2 corrupt regional managers, a doctor from a pain clinic in Portland. Every thread Lydia had suspected. For the first time in years, someone believed her. Dawson did not fare as well. Records revealed he had repeatedly buried complaints against Northline. Texts surfaced, showing communications with Barnes, updates, schedule changes, keep her away from the yard. Internal Affairs arrived before sunset. He was escorted out of the station under a sky turning gold. Reyes stood beside him as he passed Lydia's hospital door, shaking his head. He fooled us. But not you, Lydia said nothing. Not out of bitterness. Out of relief, finally. It wasn't her word against a system designed to bury the truth. That evening, the Harpers pushed 2 chairs beside Lydia's bed. Lily colored quietly, softer now, innocence tempered but unbroken. Jack filled out victim statements. Ranger curled on the floor, massive head resting on Lily's sneakers. At one point, the nurse peeked in. Visiting hours ended 20 minutes ago. Jack started to apologize, but Lydia spoke first. They're not visitors, she said softly. They're family. The nurse smiled and nodded. Later, when the hallway lights dimmed and the building settled, Lily climbed onto the edge of Lydia's bed. Deputy, do you think bad people will always exist? Lydia considered the question, one she'd asked herself many nights in Chicago. Yes, she said gently. But so will brave people, and good dogs, and girls who don't run away even when they're scared. Lily leaned her head on Lydia's arm. Ranger exhaled deeply, eyelids drooping. For the first time since the fire in Chicago, Lydia felt the tightness in her chest loosen, not disappearing, but shifting, making space for something else. Not fear, not guilt, healing. The kind that arrives quietly like snow melting under a new sunrise. 3 weeks later, Pine Ridge no longer felt like the frightened, fog-hidden town it had been. Spring arrived early, thin green shoots pushing through thawed soil, sunlight warming the cedar shingles on Main Street, and the river running bright and alive after months of winter ice. The world looked different. Maybe because the town itself had changed, or maybe because the people had. Inside the Pine Ridge Community Center, folding chairs filled the gym. Parents and kids whispered. The mayor stood by a podium, straightening index cards nervously. The local news crew angled cameras, lenses gleaming under fluorescent lights. But everyone's attention was locked on the door. When it opened, Lydia Cole stepped inside, arm still in a sling, shoulder healed enough to move without pain. She wore her uniform again, pressed, clean, badge gleaming. The room rose to its feet as she walked down the aisle. Behind her came Lily Harper, clutching a small stack of drawings. A red semi, a wolf emblem, a brave dog leaping through fire. She wore a dress the color of sunrise, hair pulled back in a loose braid, and beside her, moving with the solemn weight of an old warrior, Ranger. He wasn't just walking, he was leading, head high, chest out, the slight limp from his injured paw barely visible. His coat shone from the grooming Lily insisted on giving him every morning. When he entered, the whole room erupted into applause. Flashbulbs popped. Children gasped. Grown men wiped their eyes. Because everyone knew, if not for the dog, Pine Ridge would be grieving 2 funerals. The mayor tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, today Pine Ridge honors heroism, not in a soldier, not in an officer, but in a companion who refused to stand down. He looked at Ranger. And saved a life. Lily pressed a trembling hand to her mouth as the mayor held up a small velvet box. Inside was a custom-made honorary canine service badge, polished to a mirror shine, the Pine Ridge insignia engraved at its center. Lydia bent to one knee, fastening the badge to Ranger's leather collar. "You earned this," she whispered. Ranger leaned his forehead gently against her chest. Lily clapped so hard her arms shook. Jack stood at the back of the room, eyes shining with something deeper than pride, something like gratitude for a miracle he still didn't fully understand. After the ceremony, families spilled outside into the early spring sun. Children ran across the grass. Sparrows chirped from telephone wires. The world seemed safe again. Lydia stood by the riverbank, watching Ranger drink from the water's edge. Lily knelt beside him, feeding him treats she'd saved from breakfast. "He loves peanut butter biscuits," she announced proudly. Lydia smiled. "Good, because I think he'll be needing a lot more of them." Jack joined them, hands in his pockets, breath warm in the cool air. "State police offered Ranger a spot as an honorary search and rescue companion," he said. "I told them we'd think about it." Lydia raised an eyebrow. "We?" Jack met her gaze. "I'm just saying, he seems to think he belongs with us, and so do you," Lily piped up. "We could share him. Half with Daddy, half with you. Like joint custody, but for heroes," Lydia laughed. A real laugh. The kind she hadn't felt since Chicago. It rose from her chest and drifted into the spring air like music. Ranger pressed his head against all 3 of them, tail sweeping the grass. A family. Not by blood. Not by plan. But by survival. By courage. By love. The river shimmered with gold as the sun dipped low, painting their silhouettes against the water. Lydia rested her hand on Ranger's badge. "You saved us," she whispered. Ranger looked up, eyes gentle but ancient, as if saying, "You saved me first." And for the first time in a very long time, Lydia believed she wasn't running from her past anymore. She was walking toward something new, something bright, something whole. In the end, Pine Ridge didn't remember the fear, the fog, or the men who tried to bury the truth. They remembered a little girl who refused to stay silent, a deputy who stood her ground, even when she was bleeding, and a dog, old, scarred, forgotten by the world, who still ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. That's the thing about heroes on 4 legs. They don't wait for medals. They don't ask for praise. They simply listen to the heartbeat of the people they love and move. Ranger reminded an entire town that courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it limps. Sometimes it growls. Sometimes it presses its head into a frightened child's hand until she feels safe enough to breathe again. And maybe that's why we tell these stories. To remember that loyalty is still real, that instincts can save lives, and that even in our darkest hours, a dog's devotion can light the way home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because every paw print has a story.